standing here with Michael, who's going to tell us a little bit about the new Prince of Persia and what you're showing off here at E3 this year.
Sure thing. Well, we've got a playable demo here now at E3, one that we play for people, and we're pretty excited about what we finally have to show. There are 4 main features that we're trying to show off with this demo, primarily Elica, the companion to the prince, our new illustrative art style, our completely redesigned combat system, and the open world concept where you can travel the world in the new Prince of Persia.
So let's take them one by one. Elica, let's start with her. What kind of role does she play, and how does she enhance the gameplay in the game?
Well, it starts with the adventure really is hers. Like, the objective is hers, to heal this world of hers that the prince is helping her with. And for the player, Elica is a companion that has a number of capabilities that helps him travel through the world. She gives him like an extra boost for jumping. She helps him in combat. She can help guide him through the game. And she's just very involved with the player in every aspect, even just in little ways, like when they're moving through the world, holding hands, and the way they interact with one another. So she's just she's very present for the player through the entire game.
And the art style, of course, is also something that's present throughout the game, and that's something that really sets this game apart from other action adventures, in my opinion. And what are your thoughts on that?
We're very pleased that it does help it set itself apart. It was something that we were really hoping for, but where it came from was that we have really great concept artists at Ubisoft Montreal, and they've always helped design the look of the previous Prince of Persia's, but in this one we tried to take it a step further and like actually bring that concept art right into the game. And so we call it illustrative. It's an illustrative style, and it's so that it feels like that you're running around on paintings, that you're like interacting with this world that's essentially a living painting. And we feel we're very confident that we pulled off what we were looking for, and it's gotten really good reactions from almost anyone who's seen it at the show. Yeah,
it's sort of lets your imagination flow.
Exactly, and in fact, like with the theme of the game, this light versus dark, it's very mythological, and this illustrative style just seems to just go with that very nicely. It just adds to it. We're very pleased. We're very excited about the combat. The combat is one of the bigger gameplay evolutions in the new Prince of Persia. For starters, like with all of your fighting, you just take on one person at a time. In this case, you were fighting against the hunter, as you said. And having this dual style of fighting, we were able to become much deeper in the combat system. It was more involved. The enemies are smarter. The enemies adapt to what you do, and so you have to adapt your own style throughout a fight. A fight takes longer and it's more involved, and it feels very much like a fight scene from a movie. Like, it's all very cinematic and very dramatic, and yet you never know what's going to happen from one fight to the next. You can't just learn a combo and it becomes your save-all in all fights, like, because it'll only be really ideally applicable in certain situations, and there's certain situations where you just can't do it. So you have to become comfortable with the whole combat system in order to master it and pick what you're doing. So it's like playing a fighting game. When you go into a fighting game, there's not just, you have a tool set that you use and you pull it out when you need it, and that's the way our fight system works.
And can you explain how Elica fits into the combat system?
Oh, certainly, yeah. Well, for starters, throughout the entire game, she's someone who she'll be there to back you up. Like, she'll rescue you when you're in trouble. But mainly in the fight, when you call her, she is an extra attack. She's like a very powerful attack against the enemies. For instance, there are defensive states that the enemy get in where they cover themselves in corruption, and only she can break that off of them, and the prince cannot harm them in that state. So there's a few ways that she can help out in the fights.
You were fighting against a hunter. It's something that you've shown previously as well. I was interested to know, like, are there many different enemies like the hunter, or are there different kinds of hunters, or how does that work in the game?
There are multiple enemies in the game. The hunter is the one that we have showcased thus far, and there are many manifestations of this corruption and characters in the game. I'm not going to give any exact numbers, but there will be multiple enemies, and they're all very different in their style, in terms of whether it be in a fight or in terms of the area of the world that they're in. So there will be a lot of variety as far as that goes.
The boss fight, or the fight that we saw, was a little bit like a boss fight, like a set piece. Will there also be random encounters with hunters, or will there mainly be like hunting one enemy that is doing something specific?
There's nothing that I would call a random encounter. There's something that's a little bit like that. There are enemies that you will encounter that are not so showcased, but there are a lot of fights that are showcased this way. Like when you'll encounter the hunter more than once, and each time you encounter him, it'll be a big showcase fight like that. Yeah.
Finally, we're also talking about the open world
yes.
element of Prince of Persia. Can you explain a little bit how that works? Because that's something new to the franchise.
It is new to the franchise, and it's something that I think fans of the franchise have kind of been hoping for, that idea that you can travel around a little bit more freely. Now, our open world is not a sandbox. It's not just go where you will. it's not linear like previous pop. It's kind of a hybrid between the two, where you will pick a path when you come to an intersection, say I want to go this way, I want to go west or north, and once you pick that path, it's very linear and crafted like a previous pop kind of acrobatics, where you go through this acrobatic sequence and have to execute that properly, and then you get to another point where eventually you can say, oh, now I want to go this way, and it'll all depend on where you want to go in the world, and you can use the map to say where you want to go, and Elica, this is one of the ways she can help you, is guide you, oh, you want to take this path, you want to take that path, to get you to where you've chosen to go.
And clean up the corruption.
Exactly, yes.
So you showed off also the tremors, which is one manifestation of corruption. And can you tell us a little bit about how that works?
Yes, certainly. Like you were asking about the enemies. Like the hunter is an example of almost like the highest form of manifestation of the corruption. And then there are other enemies. And then we have almost like a lowest form of life form, which are things like these tremors. They're like these semi-sentient patches of the corruption that'll do things like move around or perhaps chase the prince. And in this case here, the tremors were a moving corruption, and the corruption is deadly to the prince, and since it moves, it's something that he just needs to be more careful about.
Once you've cleaned up the corruption, can you tell us a little bit about how the world changes and what you can expect to see that?
Oh, certainly. Like you were saying, as a main objective, what you are doing with Elica is cleaning the corruption out of her world, and this has two major effects. First, visually, you see the world come back to life. That it no longer is so dreary. The corruption itself goes away. There are no longer any enemies to fight in that region, and it's all healthy and grass and butterflies. But also, it reveals these things that we call light seeds, the collectible in the game. And when you gather these collectibles, you use them to purchase new powers for Elica. So she becomes more powerful as you get these collectibles, and you can only get them in areas that are healed.
So there's basically two sides of the game.
Exactly. There's like two states of it, like two types of play. And so when you're halfway through the game and half the game is still corrupted and half of it is healed, depending on where you are, it completely changes your experience and your focus. Like you can be just exploring, trying to find these collectibles, or you get into a dangerous area and suddenly you're fighting and like having to overcome a lot of adversaries, and it'll create a real interesting pace to the gameplay of the whole game.
So when can we play Prince of Persia?
You can play it this holiday. It'll be coming out in November, and it'll be coming out on the PS3, the Xbox 360, and on PC.
Thank you very much for your time.
Oh, thank you very much.